You know, Sesame Street used to have their number of the day, word of the day, letter of the day, whatever it is. Today's letter of the day or number of the day is 8 million. And we got a lot to discuss regarding this and much more all right here. This is South Carolina Live. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Lucas Hill. I've got a very, very special guest with me today. Here with me, former college football quarterback. Also worked with Lenore Sellers a little bit whenever he was in high school. The man himself, John Baylor Altman. You'll know him today as JB. JB, what's up, dude? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Yeah, I go to South Carolina. I played a little quarterback back in the day, and I'm retired now. But yeah, we here in South Carolina, the quarterback kind of room in this area is very small. Everybody knows everybody just about. Lenoris is obviously a couple years younger than me, so we trained together a couple of times. But I have some friends of mine that are around his age that have trained with him, and like I said, South Carolina is a small state. Everybody knows everybody in the sports world. We had the same quarterback trainer. The guy that Ramon Robertson, he kind of operates here in the upstate Greenville area. So Lenoris would come up, sometimes in Greenville, but obviously he kind of lives he lives in Florence, so a little bit further away from me. So he would obviously train down there some as well. But yeah, speaking of the 8 million, I mean, so if you really go back, what's interesting is if you go back to 6 months ago when everybody's getting re-signed after the football season, there was a kind of an odd thing because I would say for about 48 hours, Gamecock fans were very worried because there was a time where everybody just assumed that Lenoris was going to come back, but then he did not sign the Garnet Trust NIL deal like immediate, like everybody else did. There was like a 48-hour window where it was kind of odd. Like everybody was like, "Oh, what is he doing? What's taking so long?" And now that this kind of stories came out, it kind of seems like he wasn't exploring, but the dads was getting calls. He was getting calls. So looking back at it now, I can kind of just, presumably assume that they were thinking about it. I mean, when 8 million gets thrown at you, I don't care who you are, you're going to think twice.
So did they contact Dad first, or did they contact Lenoris first?
I'm not completely 100% sure on that. I don't want to lead anybody in the wrong direction,
right?
But
because the Tennessee situation with Nico, I think they notified Nico, and then when Nico notified a Dad, that's when Dad went on social media and went insane.
Well, I would think the opposite. I mean, I have been told that a lot of times that they're contacting friends and family because it's either bad faith or they don't want to get in the way of the coach and the player's relationship. So they're not contacting the player directly. They're contacting close family or friends,
right,
is what I've been told. Now, again, that could be completely wrong, but I would just guess that the dad got involved, that the dad got the notification, especially these dads in the South. I mean, they're very involved in their sons' lives, especially quarterbacks. So that's what I would guess. And then it sounds like Lenoris probably has a little bit smarter of a father than Nico. Maybe I'm just being mean, but I mean, to tell your son, hey, we've got the NIL that we need, and there's plenty of money to be made, and just not lead him in a dumb decision to where now right. Nico's making less than he was making at Tennessee, and he's not even a top 10 program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those things can backfire on you quickly. Now, what is different is Nico, he went and tried to negotiate in the spring. This kind of slight thought was like right after the football season when everybody was basically poaching other players off of each other. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, they still are.
They won't stop for nothing. Like you mentioned already, JB, they're going to contact friends and family because they know if they contact a player, NCAA violations. Oh, contact a friend or a family member? Well, we're just skating along the lines of these rules. That's what's the tampering situation, and that's why this has become such a big deal. That's why you see guys like Jim Moore calling this out and many other coaches around college football. But I do think it is a big deal. But go ahead, JB.
Well, let me ask you this. Will this new house settlement, is that going to – because the way I understand it, the House settlement is going to make sure anytime you get an NIL deal, it's going to go to some board or somebody approving this NIL deal if it's over $600.
And if they approve it over $600, you're going to get taxed to hell, like what, 10-15% of that? Because that's what I saw in the settlement. And that's what I heard Trey Wallace and other guys that were involved in this settlement. That's what I read in the case as well.
Well, I mean, they're gonna find a way to tax you no matter what you do. But right. So what I'm interested to see is now that this House settlement is here, are they just going to let family members and friends negotiate these deals like they have been the past 3 years? I would hope that they're going to be a little bit more strict on, hey, we need someone with some actual experience or some type of knowledge, so not leading these kids into just pure, abyss. Right. I mean, so that's what I'm hoping is going to happen. I do think the House settlement, maybe I'm wrong. I've done some research, but I think it's a bit of a misconception that everything's going to be perfect now that this settlement's happened. I think it is almost like a Band-Aid, just trying to stop the bleeding as much as possible, which is a good thing. But I don't think this House settlement is, everything's fixed and we're all back to sunshine and rainbows.
In many ways, this House settlement, like we've been talking about, I've been saying it since February. The downfall of the NCAA is ensuing right now. It started back in 21 when they allowed NIL to come into play. Now, you could say that it started back when 19, when the portal officially became a thing. But really, the portal didn't really start taking off until NIL was introduced in 21. And then 22 is when things really started to hit the fan. That's when we really first started seeing all these different ordeals go on. Because you had during that, I think it was either that offseason or it was during the 23 offseason that you had the whole Jaden Rashada $11 million case that the deal fell right through the ceiling because of a misunderstanding within the contract. And that brings me to this point. Why doesn't every college P4 conference at least have a financial, or at least 2 or 3 financial advisors as well in college athletic programs? Because now that this settlement is being implemented, now is the pristine opportunity for guys with financial experience in their background to come into these colleges and say, look, you're getting offered this amount of money to transfer here. Let me tell you the pros and cons of doing it and what all is going to be laid out once you add in your income tax, your state tax, et cetera, all that you have to do and give you the total sum of what you're going to end up getting paid. Why don't we have that?
I think we do in certain, like I know South Carolina does. I have a buddy that's on the track team at USC, and they have a, counselor, financial advisor, all that stuff. Here's the thing. You're dealing with 18 and 19-year-olds. You know who they listen to? Oddly enough, they listen to their family and friends and their parents.
And the agent. And the agent that's involved.
The agent that's going to promise them all this money that supposedly they're going to get. So they're not – and look, we're all 18, 19, so, I mean, everybody goes through it. But you're not going to trust – or a lot of people aren't going to trust some random person you just met. They're going to trust their mom. They're going to trust their dad. They're going to trust their grandparents, the people that raised them. And the sad thing is a lot of them, I mean, mom and dad don't have any financial background. So
no.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can trust your mom or dad, but you got to know their field. I mean, so it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that you're going in the right direction. If we can, it was going to be real bad if this was not, if this was not passed. At least we're right now we're either going in the right direction or at least we're like hitting like a standstill. At least we're still not going in a negative direction. We'll see how it goes. What's interesting about back to South Carolina and NIL with Norse. So this could help them because a program like South Carolina falls into this kind of this hard thing to where they're never going to outbid anybody, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm a South Carolina fan. I'll just admit that. Been one my whole life. But they're never going to outbid anyone. So you got 2 options. Number one, these rules and these laws or whatever you want to call them come in place and make it a lot more fair for everybody who can't just buy players. That's one option. Number 2, you have what we have right now, to where everybody's just getting picked off like crazy. The only way South Carolina and even Clemson, I mean, you could say this about Clemson too. The only way they're going to keep those top players in the country is, to me, I could say you're going to give them a crap ton of money, but LSU and Alabama and Georgia are just going to outbid you. So in my opinion, the way to keep them is if they're in the state. If they grew up in South Carolina, they have some sort of allegiance to at least try to stay home. And that's what happened with Norris. In my opinion, if he's not from South Carolina, he's gone. He is gone. He is gone. And this is just not trying to be mean on South Carolina's part, but if they didn't go 9-3 this year, Dylan Stewart's gone too. So, and because he's from the DC area, and now the Gamecocks have done a fantastic job recruiting out of that area. They have just killed it in that area. So it's become kind of a breeding ground for them. But when it comes to the NIL stuff, I think you're really going to have to, if you're a South Carolina fan, really hope that you can get the best players in this state. And Shane Beamer's he is focused on that. If you think about that back to the 2010s, 2013s, all the players that you know and love are from South Carolina. Marcus Lattimore, Jadavian Clowney. I mean, Greenwood High School used to be a big – Josh Norman didn't go to South Carolina, but he played in the pros for a long time. So if you can keep those guys in South Carolina, and most of the people are not going to want to leave the state for their families and that sort of reason.
Our boy Jackson in the comments section, he's the co-host over at Alabama at the Voice of College Football. Tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix about the magic that Lucas Hill brings you on Wednesdays on Gamecocks Live here on South Carolina's Voice of College Football. Don't forget to tell the cashiers at Publix about the magic Lucas brings on his own channel, Inside the Huddle. We appreciate that, Jackson. Jackson, if you're still in the comments, how many days do we have till college football season? Because I've been curious about that. Publix? I don't even know. I don't think we even have a Publix anywhere. But I want to go ahead and pull up 247 Sports' South Carolina player rankings in the class of 2026 because I find it so impressive to see what SC has done, not just this past year, which they did with a pretty interesting portal class in 25. I thought you brought in guys. I know me and you talked about this, I think, last week, especially about this portal class on the D line. You didn't bring in sexy names, but it's guys that you can plug in and they can be instant starters on Saturdays. So here's the class of 2026. And here's a recent trend I've noticed, JB, is that with SC, you're starting to out-recruit your rivals in the state, which I think is impressive because I know it's fairly early. I mean, you're already talking about 1, 2, 3 top 10 players that have already committed to play in Gamecock Nation. Clemson only has 1 commit as of right now. Now, we still have to wait for Julian Walker, Tamarion Watkins, Carnell Warren, and Malcolm Gaston. But for now, it seems like the recruiting trail has started to shift towards Shane Beamer and company, especially over what they did last year, over the success of what they built back in 22. My only concern is that this year is going to turn into another 2023. That's where I am very, very nervous about. But I think the biggest difference between 22's offseason and this past offseason for SC is you have a much better portal class and you have a much better recruiting class to back it up.
So here's the concerning part. South Carolina has always recruited well. Now, they have not recruited at the level they're recruiting right now. But if you think about it, Debo Samuel, Shaw Smith, Brian Edwards, all these great players, I think their problem has been not recruiting. Their problem has been developing and winning when they're there. If you go back and look, I mean, like I just mentioned 3 guys. Debo's, one of the best receivers in the NFL for the past 4 or 5 years. Shaw Smith and Brian Edwards, they're not like elite in the NFL, but they were elite at South Carolina. So South Carolina's going to have to really, develop these guys and put it all together because they've got the most talent they're going to have. This is probably the most talented roster they've had. I mean, last year's was more talented, but I just mean from a young perspective, they're going to have more depth And even the next, like you said, even the 2026 class, these next couple of years are really going to be important. This season, like you just mentioned, I think could be the most important season maybe since Shane Beamer's been there because of what you just said. Ask any South Carolina fan in the world. When you think they're going to be good, they kind of disappoint you. And when they're not, when you think they're going to be bad, they're like, they pull out something out their butt. They just do. I mean, this is how Carolina is. So I'm hoping that, all South Carolina fans are hoping that they kind of go back, follow up with a good season, because if they can, the recruiting class will explode. This is what you don't want to do. You don't want to lose your momentum that you just built up, because you got Lenoris, and you want to make Lenoris make a decision. I know South Carolina fans don't want him to leave, but you want the season to go so well to where he's going, should I go to the NFL or should I come back for one more year and try to win a national championship? So that's the decision you really want him to make. You don't want to go 6-6 and him transfer and go to Georgia. That's what you don't want. So, like you said, I think they've got some good key pieces. They've got a couple corners that are really good. The secondary is going to be interesting because you lost one of the best players in the country in Nicky Memori. And your front seven, that's going to be the most – that's what I'm going to look at the most. I mean, you're just going to have to see what's going to happen there, because you really never know. Like, if you go back and ask me a year ago who's going to be good up front for Carolina on the front seven, Kyle Kennard was considered a good pickup from Georgia Tech. He was not considered like the best player on their team pretty much. I mean, he was unbelievable last year. He far exceeded expectations. So I'm hoping, and all South Carolina fans are hoping, that they've got one of those guys that can really, really, we thought was a good pickup, but ends up being a lot better than advertised. Like Brandon Cease he's a corner from North Carolina State. He's at South Carolina. He is supposed to be really, really good, plug and play, starter right away, day one. So we're kind of going to see how that goes. And then the guy that I'm really interested to see we replace is his name's escaping me. The linebacker for 17. What's his name escaping me?
From last year?
Yeah, this past
Demetrius?
year. Yeah, Demetrius Knight, yeah.
I saw Demetrius at the Senior Bowl.
He may have been – I'm not saying he was the best player on the team, because he wasn't, but he was like the glue that just put it all together.
Right. I could definitely see that leadership quality that he brought to the team.
So linebacker is such an important piece. So I'm really interested to see how the linebacker spot is going to work out for South Carolina. What do you think of – what have you heard about South Carolina? What do you think of their schedule? Do you have you think they're going to go 9-3? Like, what is your overall assessment? I mean,
oh God, JB. I'm glad
they're the most unpredictable team in college football.
I know.
They are. I mean, they could lose. I'm not lying. I got the schedule pulled up right here.
This schedule, they could lose.
They could lose to Kentucky and beat LSU the next week. They could lose to Kentucky and beat LSU. Like, that's
how South Carolina has typically always been.
Now, if it's a night game, LSU's going to win. But
but I've looked on the schedule right now. They say it's currently at a flex schedule right now, so it could go either way. It just depends on, I think, just the network in general. Jackson, 66 days until week 0 and 74 days until South Carolina plays Virginia Tech. All right. So that's good. Shout out my SWAC conference team that'll be kicking off college football, the Southern Jaguars. Go Jags. I know a lot of them that play there. But no. JB, my ceiling for South Carolina is probably 10-2. My cellar for them is 4-8 or 5-7. And I think it all, like you mentioned, you got to replace a lot on the defense, because you just lost the Nagurski Award winner in Kyle Kennard. You lost probably one of the quickest defensive tackle that I have seen come from South Carolina in a while in TJ Sanders. You got to replace Tonka Hemingway. You got to replace Demetrius Knight. You got to replace Eamon Wari. Now, granted, I like overall with what that roster brings. Who's that corner that y'all have? Oh, Lord. He was a second-team All-SEC last year. That dude's a shot. I watched him plenty earlier today. I mean, his footwork is incredible. Do you know, I think it was it Jalen or was it someone else?
Kilgore,
yeah. Jalen Kilgore. Kilgore is going to be a lockdown on the outside. They have him as a top 50 prospect. And then obviously everybody knows about the Dylan Stewart.
I'm interested to see about him this year. What are your expectations for him? Because I think it's going to test his character because he's going to get double teamed.
Yes.
Everybody knows who he is now. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to be able to handle this frustration because I mean, you go on any chart, he's the number one player in the country. Him and the guy from Ohio State, the receiver,
Caleb Downs or Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith are the two supposedly best returning players in college football. Is what they have on every single thing. So they've got South Carolina's got a guy. His name is Brian
Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. He's supposed to be.
Believe it or not, I think he follows me on Instagram.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's supposed to be really, really good. I think he's more of a.
Here's my thing about Brian. I like him better as a third down back. I like what Clayton is going to bring with him, but I'd rather him go on the outside on third down because back whenever I was playing, we used to have a 5-man front. I think it was either Bear or Cougar. So when we went to either one of those, we would have 3 interior guys, and I'd have an edge and an edge. Brother, when I tell you that it was a nightmare going into that formation and having my edge come across the backside, it was incredible. And I think Brian Thomas is better suited for that. Had 4.5 sacks last year. And how much did he really play? He was in a lot of different packages that Clayton White developed perfectly for him. In my opinion, Clayton White is one of the most underrated defensive coordinators in college football. It's amazing that he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I know they've been inconsistent, but when he's on, he's on. Look at what they did to Texas A&M last year. Look at how consistent that front four was in the backfield, time in and time out. Option plays, red quarterback pull, was in the backfield in a hurry. Interior-wise, bullied interior offensive linemen. Now when you go into this year, it's up in the air to me. It's a 50-50 crapshoot that I could say. I know you have solid pieces that you've gotten from the portal, and then you have 2 solid edge rushers with Stewart and with Brian Thomas. My only concern is how do you buff up on the interior? Because it's hard to replace 2 guys like Hemingway and with Sanders.
Yeah, it is. And another thing is, what I noticed what I noticed last year was South Carolina. I don't know. There was a lot of talk the previous year. So in 2023, they had a ton of injuries. They really, really changed a lot of their conditioning and strength programs to try to make sure more people are healthy. And in 2024, their injuries were not very much. They did not have many injuries, and the injuries they did have were not like key players. And Norris was banged up towards the beginning of the year.
Yes.
But to me, that was just first 4 or 5 games in the SEC. It wasn't
was he still dealing with that ankle in the preseason?
No, he injured that.
Just happened during the LSU game.
Well, yes and no. That happened in the freaking Akron game. That happened in the Akron game, I'm pretty sure. And then the Kentucky game, they were still swapping him and Ashford out some. Because if you go back, they were still like at one point, they played well. But I think maybe it was a concussion in the Kentucky game. He got hit out for a play or 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, the LSU game, he really injured. He re-injured that ankle, and man, that was. But yeah, overall is what I'm saying though. Like for example, like the number one thing you cannot get hurt if you're South Carolina is offense and defensive line. You have to stay healthy. You don't have a choice. I don't care what you got to do. You have to stay healthy. You can't win football games in the SEC if you can't stop the run and if you can't get to the quarterback. That's the number one thing. You have to stay healthy up front. And that's what they did last year. Dylan Stewart wasn't hurt that much. Kyle Kennard wasn't hurt that much. Tucky Hemingway, TJ Sanders, all those guys stayed healthy. The offensive line at South Carolina was better. It was decent. It also made you feel good when Norris made 4 people miss every single possession. So that helps. So
when we come back, we're going to take a little break. We'll get into our position previews and already continue our discussion on the big boys. We'll talk about the offensive and defensive line. Let's hear from our little sponsor from Amazon.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
And we're back. And Lucas must be doing something. But anyway, well, I'll continue for him. Yeah, South Carolina, it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be doing this year. They've got a lot of, interesting pieces, the receiver position, and like we talked about before, the offensive defensive line. That'll be key. They've got some key transfers in the for the offensive line. They'll be starting a new center. What'll be presumably is Boaz Stanley from Troy. And here comes Lucas.
I had to go get all this and send it to my girlfriend's mom. So the those of y'all that don't know, she got a root canal today, and it is fun. But that's always fun. But anyways, what were you talking about, JB, while I was gone?
I was just talking about I mentioned so South Carolina picked up a couple offensive linemen in the portal. What's interesting is they're going to have a new starting center for the first time since Shane Beamer's been there. It's been the same guy since he's been there. He is now moved on, seniored out, I guess. But the new center is going to be Boaz Stanley. What's interesting enough is I played with him at Georgia Military.
Was he at
he was at Troy.
Southern? Huh? Troy? Okay.
Yeah. So he played 2 years. I only played 1 year with him.
Okay.
But he played 1 year with me at Georgia Military. Then he went to Troy, and then now he's at South Carolina. And he's going to be the starter from everything I've heard. And he's going to be a really good piece for South Carolina. I think that the offensive line will be better. I think that they had a lot of learning last year. They had a lot of young guys. Josiah Thompson started as a freshman. So there'll be that continued level of progression and getting better. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be better. I mean, it always helps when you have a wizard at quarterback. As long as he stays healthy, he can kind of get you out of some jams. So is there anything else that you want to add with the offensive defensive line, what you've seen or anything like that?
I think overall, I don't know what you've seen during spring, but from what I saw, the biggest thing that I have with offensive line with South Carolina is that you have to be consistent. I think last year you started off really rough. Now, during that stretch where you won, 5 or 6 games in a row, dating from, I would say even that Bama game on, your offensive line played a lot better. Texas A&M was your best game that you ever played. And that was one of the best defensive lines in the country last year. I mean, you'd had almost dang near 3 draft picks on that defensive line with Shamar Stewart, with Nick Scourton, and with Shamar Turner, and you manhandled them. You did really well against them. You did better than what you were expected to do. It was expected Lenore's was going to be running for his life. Lenore's ended up having one of his best games of the year at that point. And I would argue that was one of his best games of the year overall.
Yeah, well, I mean, something flipped in that Bama game for sure, and everybody, especially the offensive line. The Bama game, if you go back and look, it's kind of crazy. People forget, like, Lenore's is one of the best players in the country. No one's saying he's not. But he missed a throw to beat Bama on the 2-point conversion. And if he beats Bama, South Carolina's in the college football playoff, and again, he's a redshirt freshman, so people make mistakes. That's just how it's going to be. But like you said, back to the offensive line, the consistency is definitely going to have to be there. I think it'll be interesting starting out with Virginia Tech this year. Virginia Tech is, this is not, Furman, so they're not going to be rolling over. They're going to be decent. So it'll be interesting. South Carolina is going to come out and be ready to play. Their first 4 games are Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Kentucky, and then they have LSU, that's more than 4. But if you think about it, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, those aren't, and Missouri are not. They're not like the highest level of SEC competition, but they're also not scrubs either. You got Diego Pavia coming back. Missouri with Drinkwitz is always pretty good, and a lot of the times they've had South Carolina's number. Kentucky's always tough for South Carolina. They had a streak where they were losing to them almost every year, and they've kind of, since Shane Beamer's become the coach, they've kind of nipped that in the bud. But I think Mark Stoops is a really good coach. I just think he's at Kentucky, and it's kind of tough down there at Kentucky for football. But anyway, so those are not easy games to start out with. It'll be a really big test for the offensive line those first 3 or 4 weeks, because when you go to LSU, you really gonna have to play well. It's gonna be for real. So we'll see how it goes. I think what's interesting, what helped at the offensive line, this could arguably be the biggest thing for South Carolina. Who and how is a running back game going to be? Because if you ask any fan that knows anything about football, Lenore's is great. The defensive line is great. All that, the secondary is great. The key piece of that team was Rocket Sanders. He made everything so much easier because defenses didn't know, is he going to take off and run, or is Lenore's going to take off and run, or is Lenore's going to do a play action and throw it down the field? So the running back is going to be very interesting. They've got a bunch of news for the Faison kid. It's not looking good for him getting that NCAA approval. Maybe they'll speed it up.
Yeah.
They picked up a kid in the portal like a week ago that they say is not a backup plan, but it's probably just a reassuring thing. Because they got some good.
It is. It's a backup plan.
Yeah, it is. They're smart to do that, though.
I agree.
So they've got Attaway. They've got the kid from South Carolina State. His name's escaping me.
Attaway? No, not Attaway. God dog it, I covered him last week. But I know what you mean.
Name? But he's really good. He ran for like 1,000 yards. I know it's South Carolina State, but he ran for 1,000 yards as a freshman at South Carolina State. So he's a bigger kid. They've got a running back from high school that's really good. That was in the class I think last year. So they've got some pieces, but I think you really want Faison. If you can get him, you really want him to be your number one, so you can really, really, stretch that defensive front to where, you really can stretch them out to where South Carolina's not one-sided. Now, if you can get the Faison kid, everybody is killing South Carolina right now for not taking receivers in the portal. A lot of the ESPN, people are saying, oh, they're not going to be good at receiver. I think they're going to be really good at receiver. I think Harbor is going to go. I'm calling it right now. I've been kind of critical of him, but it's going to take. It took some time for him to really develop because if you know, he was a defensive end in high school. He did not play receiver, so he's really clicked in the past 6 months. If you go back and look at the film, the last 5 games, he was pretty dang good. He played well in the Alabama game, played well in the Texas A&M game, played well in the Missouri game. He played well in the bowl game as well. So I think Harbur's going to be really good. Mazio Bennett's from the Greenville area. I know him a little bit. He's a really good player. He's very consistent. And then they picked up like 5 4-star receivers. So I know they're out of high school, but still, I mean, if 2 of them hit, you're good. I mean, so I think they've got some real talent. I'm not as worried about receiver as I am the offensive line and running game, because I think that just really is where it starts. If South Carolina could run for 100 yards a game with the running backs, I don't really think you want – yes, you want it, but I don't really think you want Lenoir running 18, 19 times a game like he was at the beginning of last season, because he was not quite comfortable throwing the ball in the passing game. So if you go back, the Akron game and the Kentucky game, the first couple, even the LSU game, he was really running a lot. And I think LSU, Bama, Georgia, run him. It doesn't matter. But you're really going to have to develop that passing game. So, and you don't really want him getting hurt, because he's a big kid and he runs hard. So you don't want him twisting an ankle again, because you could argue if he didn't twist that ankle, South Carolina's in the college football playoff, they beat LSU. I think they beat LSU if he's helped.
Coming from a Baton Rouge kid who watched that game, yes, I completely agree. I can guarantee you about 99% of LSU fans would agree.
Yeah,
two things. Lenoir doesn't get hurt, or that block in the back call, which was egregious, on Garrett Nussmeier doesn't get called, they win the football game.
I'm going to give Williams-Brice a little promo here. I was at the game. That was the loudest noon game I've ever been to in my life. It was insane. Like, it was when Nick got the pick. We all saw the flag, but he didn't see it because his back was turned towards it. But Williams-Brice was rocking. It was pretty good atmosphere. So it's a great stadium, and we'll see how the Gamecocks end up this year. They've got a tough let's look at this tough slate real quick. They've got LSU at LSU, Oklahoma at Williams-Brice, Alabama at Williams-Brice, Ole Miss at Ole Miss, Texas A&M at Texas A&M, and then they get a break with Coastal at home, and then they get Clemson. So you've got 5 weeks of LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. That is tough.
Right.
That is 5-6 weeks of getting punched in the mouth.
I'll be honest with you, because continuing on with the offensive line, looking at what they got in the portal, Nolan Hay, who they got from UIW, I watched him last year because he played at UIW and A, or in the same conference as my current school at Southeastern. Elusive tackle. I think he's a very, very good on his feet. I think he's got great footwork. I think his first punch is incredible. You already talked about Boaz Stanley. RJ Newsom from Western Kentucky is a pulling nightmare. Do not try to get as low as you can underneath him. If not, you're going to get run over. And he's going to clear a lot for you. But I like what you did with the defensive line. You got Jalen Brown and Gabe Brownlow-Diddy. I think both of those guys can fill a role on the interior. My question is just how consistent can you be with them? Can you get them in a position to where they are going to be successful? And I love Coach T. Rob. He's one of the best defensive line coaches out there. He's been with USC since 23. He's developed some of the best, been around some of the best, and they're going to continue to do that, because I think South Carolina is still going to have – they're not going to have as good of a defensive line as they did this past year, but I still think it's going to be one that contends as one of the best in the nation. So I want to go ahead and get to this topic as we move on to here. Circling South Carolina. So Diego Bavia appeared on Bussin' with the Boys. I think it was, 2 days ago or something? He said a lot of crazy stuff. First of all,
you think Dylan Stewart is not hearing that? I promise you right now, he is circling that game.
We'll get to what we get around the SEC in just a little bit, but this is one I really want to pay attention to. And this is going to be one of the biggest things we talk about. Game 3 is what Diego Pavia is circling. Well, guess who's playing in Vandy Game 3? At Willie B. Probably going to be a night game. Isn't this the same Diego Pavia that couldn't run the option to save his life against that front four last year? Now, I know this is going to be a different animal, but still. I know we're talking about Vanderbilt, who returns a lot of your starters. You had your core 4 returning, or no, your core 3 with Eli Stowers, Diego Pavia, and Cedric Alexander. That I can get behind. But to think that, like you mentioned, Stewart's hearing that. Thomas is hearing that. Jalen's hearing that. Norris is hearing that. Your receiving core is going to be hearing that.
And it's at Williams-Brice. I just don't see it. There's no way. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say no way, but highly unlikely. I mean, it's just not. They're going to be. South Carolina is going to be good. I mean, they may not beat LSU, beat Alabama, blah blah, but they're. I mean, circling that game out. I mean, he said right before he said that, I don't want to give the team any, juice to use, and then he calls the team out. That's the definition of giving the team some juice when you say I'm circling that game. I mean, that was my thoughts on it are be careful what you wish for. That's my thoughts on it. I mean,
so there's no odds on it right now, which I think the odds will be open and around by the time we get to August. But I'd be shocked if this isn't a 9.5, 10.5 point spread in favor of South Carolina. I think they're going to beat the brakes off of them, to be honest. I don't see this option working again against a young South Carolina team like this. I think they'll have enough games. They'll already have that experience. They got to play Kyron Daniels week 1, who is a great option quarterback when he's healthy. So I think you'll have
Virginia Tech. You think Virginia Tech's going to be better than Vanderbilt?
Yes, but Brent Pry is still going to get the boot because VT is a better program than going 6-6 on a consistent basis. They can't accept another mediocre season. Brent Pry will be gone after this year. All the additions that you got, I know you got Philip Montgomery. I know you got a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
I just can't get behind Virginia Tech this year, man. I'm sorry, but Brent Pry is gone.
I just think the reason I asked that is because what you just said. I mean, it almost seems like if you beat Virginia Tech, I mean, it's college football. There's no such thing as a guarantee, but Virginia Tech is somewhat similar to what you're going to see at Vanderbilt. So, I mean, and I would think the Virginia Tech, and I know Vanderbilt's collected some talent, but still, I think Virginia Tech is probably better roster-wise. Maybe I'm wrong than Vanderbilt. So, I just don't understand. He said he's circling South Carolina, but a sentence before that, he says, "Oh, I don't want to give the team any fuel." Well, then don't go talk crap about the whole SEC when he says, "Oh, Vanderbilt's going to run Tennessee after this year when we win. Everybody's going to want to come to Vanderbilt over University of Tennessee." It's just
when have we heard that before?
Yeah,
Except after a game.
Look, I like Diego Pavia, but I
do too.
I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying I think he's forgetting.
JB, I said this last year. I said Diego Pavia was going to be one of the most exciting players in college football.
Yeah,
I can go show you the article right now. I posted it on SEC Unfiltered.
I was concerned, actually, interesting enough, I was concerned about the Vanderbilt South Carolina game because I was like, I could see him creating some trouble for us, and the defense just swallowed him. I mean, they just beat him up, and I think that the defense. I just don't see them losing at Williams-Brice. That's the first home game of the year. That's versus SEC competition. The first one versus South Carolina State. That's great. It'll be a great opening night for them at Williams-Brice, but especially after him open his mouth.
If that isn't a pissed off
They're going to be
defense.
mad. Yeah, they're going to be pissed.
If that isn't a piss, if I'm a defensive lineman, we used to have freaking pictures of a quarterback room, and we would circle it, and which is basically a sign, and we would have it posted on our lockers every week during practice, and we said, we're going after this dude. I'm not going to say we're going to off a dude, but we're going to do our best.
Yeah.
And that needs to be USC's mentality the entire season.
Maybe, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm South Carolina, I'm looking at it a little bit, and then I'm saying, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to go out here and kick some tail, because it's not like he's at Alabama saying this. He's at Vanderbilt. No offense to Vanderbilt, but let's not sit over here and circle Vanderbilt. They don't need to be – South Carolina doesn't need to be circling anybody besides Clemson.
What did Dan Lanning say? You talk with your pads.
Yeah, we're not here for clicks, is what he said. But yeah. So, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I think South Carolina is going to win the game. I think the game that South Carolina could lose before LSU, I think it's Missouri. I think it's Virginia Tech or Missouri. I think South Carolina, really, if you think about it, they have not played well in opening games. They got their tails handed to them versus North Carolina 2 years ago when Spencer Rattler was a quarterback. Last year, they opened up with Akron and looked like they were a high school team.
I thought it was Old Dominion they opened up.
Old Dominion. Sorry, Old Dominion. Old Dominion. You're right. I mean, I guess I'm being critical, but it's just if you go back and look, they've really, really struggled in opening weeks. So do I think they'll be more prepared? Yes, because number one, I think Lenoris is going to be way more comfortable. He even said after the Old Dominion game, I don't know if you heard, he said after the Old Dominion game that he was a little bit kind of caught up in finally being the guy at Williams-Brice and all that type of stuff. So those nerves will not be there quite like they were last year. His leadership will be better. The offense will be better this year. The offense will be better this year, in my opinion. The big thing about the offense is, what's the play calling going to be like? That's my biggest question. That's my biggest concern. You lose Dowell Loggins to Appalachian State. You hire oh God, name's escaping me.
Mike Shula.
Mike Shula, sorry. You hired Mike Shula, who was with Cam Newton, the Carolina Panthers.
The thing about this too, JB, I don't know if you knew this. I was about to say that.
Yeah, he was with Cam Newton, and so they're very similar. I'm not comparing, Sellers to Cam Newton, but I mean, play style wise,
yes, he has a lot of traits that are similar to Cam.
Yeah, so I mean, it could fit well. To be honest, I don't think the offense is going to look that different. I think it's going to look pretty similar to what you saw last year. And my concern is I feel like that Sellers kind of made the offense look a little bit better than what it was last year. He kind of made a lot of plays that were just, backyard football and going to make a play happen. So we'll see kind of how that goes. But that's my biggest, maybe even outside, I would say offensive line and play calling would be on the offensive side what I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, Missouri and Virginia Tech are going to be the two games that I'm going to be. If you get past Virginia Tech, I just think that I think if you can come out the opening game and get a win, because if you look back at it, so this was the thing. I'll tell you this from a South Carolina perspective. Everybody said that throughout the whole season, everybody said the key matchup for them was Kentucky. Everybody said that because if you beat Kentucky, you go into LSU 2-0. Even if at that time people didn't think South Carolina was going to go 9-3, neither did I. You go in, you lose to LSU, then you come out and you get what you can through the next couple of years, next couple of games and go 8-4, that type of thing. But everybody was saying, if you lose to Kentucky, then you lost to Kentucky, you lose to LSU, you lose to Bama, you lose to Ole Miss, and then it just continues to kind of topple down the hill. And so I kind of think Virginia Tech is kind of that starter for them this year, to where if you can get the ball rolling quickly, then you get to South Carolina State, then you get to Vandy, and then you roll into Missouri and Kentucky. I think if you really can get that ball rolling, it'll be because it's at Missouri this year. Yeah, it is at Missouri, so that'll be interesting. It'll be see how it goes. Eli Drakowitz and Beamer kind of have like a little bit of an animosity towards each other, so it's always a bit of like a rivalry because I think Missouri and South Carolina really kind of picture themselves about the same program level wise, which I mean each program is going to say well, they're better than the other one, but from a recruiting money standpoint, I think they're very similar in that aspect.
We're going to finish this show out with a little bit of around the SEC. I want to ask you this, and we're going to do a little segment we like to call overhyped or overrated. All right. Diego Pavia is going to claim that they'll run the state of Tennessee, like we already mentioned, slamming Big Ten teams, and we also mentioned that he has South Carolina circled. Is Diego Pavia overhyped or overrated?
I'm going to say he's overhyped just because I don't think he's overrated. I think he's good. I think he runs his mouth so much that he creates the hype himself. So I'm going to go with overhyped.
I'll sit here and I'll say this. It is an overhype. I feel like now once you beat Bama, that's when the big heads started to come in. And I'm nervous about that because I don't want this kid to be – I'm not saying his career is going to turn out just like Johnny Manziel's. That's not what I'm saying at all because I think he's going to make better decisions than what Johnny Football made. But I will say this. When you run your mouth like this, like you do in the offseason, it comes back to bite you when you get in season. And that's what's going to be the most important thing for him going into the 2025 season. Arch Manning, overrated or overhyped?
This is a hard one because I don't have any film on him.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
So I can't. I mean, I don't think he's overhyped because. Well, I mean, his last name's Manning, so he's going to be hyped like nobody's business. So I'll just say overrated because there's no such thing as overhyping a Manning. It'll be interesting to see how good he is. Again, I've looked at them as much tape as I possibly can of him. There's really not a whole lot to go off of. He's kind of played some teams that aren't very good. And then he played one team when Quinn was hurt and he kind of struggled and I'm just going to say overhyped. We'll see. I mean, they open up with Ohio State. So we're going to find out pretty quickly.
Hell of a debut. But we've been through 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. We're in the 7 decades of Manning. That is impressive to me. And when I look at Arch, I look at the skill set that he brings. In the little bit of tape that I've watched, including spring, his best asset is going to be his wheels. I think his arm is going to be there. I still think it needs fine-tuning, but I think his wheels are going to be his best asset. Guess who else had great wheels? His grandfather. So when you have that type of asset that is going to benefit you at the end of the day, I think he will develop into a much better quarterback, and he's going to develop into the modern-day quarterback that you see. The modern-day quarterback relies not just being a pro-style guy. That ship is going to sail eventually. Eventually, I'm going to want my quarterback to be mobile on his feet. I want him to scramble. I want him to get outside the pocket. I want him to run. And eventually, that's what he's going to have to get into, especially at the next level, when that's a huge emphasis. When you see guys like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, even Patrick Mahomes, those guys have a unique arm, have a great arm. But what do they have that also benefits them? Their wheels. They're not just sitting in the pocket trying to roll out and just not taking off. They'll take off. They're smart quarterbacks. I want him to develop his accuracy, and I want him to develop his football IQ, and I think he's going to do that this offseason during the summer. And I think that's going to be the most important thing is summertime. Many people don't know this. JB, you and I know this. Summertime is where you get the most development. Not during in season, but during the summertime. Fall camp, you could say so. Springtime, you're a pup waiting to learn and install. Springtime or summertime is where you really start to get your work in. Ty Simpson, overrated or actually, this isn't even an overrated or overhyped. How does he perform in his first full year as a starter? Because I've watched a little bit of him. This is a unique quarterback situation that Alabama has not faced since Nick Saban took over.
I think he's going to be really good. I'm high on Ty Simpson. I think he's going to be really good. I think Alabama's going to have a really good offensive line this year. I think they're going to get back to being a little bit more of, kind of the Alabama we're used to. I think they're going to go 10-2. I think he's going to be really good. I think he fits more of what Alabama is as a program. The pocket passer that's going to make smart decisions. He can run. He actually can. He's a little bit of an underrated runner. He's not Jalen Milroe, obviously.
No.
But I think he's going to be really good. I'm high on him. I think he could be one of the top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the SEC. So, I think he's going to be – I think they're going to be good. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to shock a lot of people because I don't think he's going to make a lot of mistakes. Now, I could be eating my words here, but I think he's going to be smart with the football. I think he's going to be playing on time. He doesn't have the most amazing arm strength or the most holy crap, he can throw it 100 yards. So I like I said, I'm high on him. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think Bama's going to get back to run the football, play action. We're going to dink and dunk and take our shots here and there and play great defense. So I think he's going to be surrounded with a great team, and I'm high on him.
Last one we got, Auburn as a whole. Overrated or overhyped?
I'm going to say overrated. I don't know how good they're going to be. I just don't. You take a guy that struggled at Oklahoma, didn't play all that well as quarterback. Some of the coaching has been you stick with Peyton Thorne. That still kind of puts a thorn in your side about why you would stick with him. So it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth to be optimistic on them. So I think they're overrated. I think they're going to be a little overrated. I also think Auburn's very unpredictable too. I think they're a little bit like South Carolina to where they could be really bad this year, or I could be eating my words right now. And they could be really good out of nowhere. So I'm going to say they're going to be overrated, but they're a surprise team. And let me ask you this. We'll do one more. I just want to – what do you think of Oklahoma? I have been – I don't know what to think because everybody's talking about how great their quarterback is. What's your thoughts on Oklahoma this year?
Oh, they're going to be good. I'll say this. Offense will improve. Defensively, you will still be the same. I think even though you lost Zach Alley, who's now the defensive coordinator over in Morgantown, back with his old mentor, Rich Rodriguez. Brent Venables has already said he's taking over the defensive play calling, which I think is a great idea. You have to. Who else are you going to have? You're a great play caller on the defensive side of the ball. You're one of the best in the game. Why not take over? Which I think you should have in the first place. Offensively, you got to steal. When you got Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer to come to Norman, Oklahoma, and make an impact for your team. Those two last year with Washington State, I understand they played in the Pac-5 or whatever they call it now, but that offense was electric. John Mateer is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in college football right now. I think he has an opportunity to potentially be a first-round draft pick at the end of this year. And I think with a play caller like Arbuckle, who is so unique with his play calls, you can put him on it. You can have him quarterback draws, options, spreads. He's Mike Leach, but you've got a mobile quarterback. So now you can open the playbook much more for him to develop. And I think that Oklahoma still has the core of what your receiving room is going to look like. I know that it sucks that you lost a couple guys, but Deion Burks is coming back from injury. I know you lost a lot of guys to the portal, but I think you got a big steal with Arbuckle and with Mateer. You got Jaden Ott in the backfield, who was a 1,000-yard rusher 2 years ago, struggled with injury this past year. When he's healthy, he can be one of the best backs in college football, and I think you're going to get that. The option game that you're going to have with Ott and with John Mateer is going to be electric in college football. I have Oklahoma going 8-4 this year. I think it's an improvement, but still, you should have never given Brent Venables that contract extension last offseason. I thought that was egregious after one season and you win 10 games and you lose your bowl game. That was ridiculous. Either you watched them beat Texas and you said, we're going to give them that extension, or you were just blind to the eye and didn't actually look at how they performed in those 3 losses. And even in the latter part of the seasons when they had close wins against UCF, close losses against Kansas, how did they perform in those games? They didn't perform well. So when I look at Oklahoma, I see a team that is, yes, I agree. They could be riddled in mystery like South Carolina is at the moment. But they could be very well an 8-4, 9-3 team that can pull off a couple upsets here and there.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be good. I think there's a lot of questions with, they've got the talent, but it'll be interesting to see how they put it together. They've definitely got the quarterback and all that, but I'd like to see Brent Venables kind of really prove to us that he can kind of put together a really good offense. And we know what he is defensively. Trust me, South Carolina fans, we know how good he is. He was at Clemson for a long time. He's probably one of the best assistant coaches maybe of all time. I mean, he was outstanding for Dabo for years. So I think he's a good guy, and he's got a good family and good coaching. So I think they'll be good. We'll just have to see.
Guys, that's going to do it for us here on another great edition of South Carolina Live here at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you follow me on X at Lucas_Hill23. Follow the Voice of College Football at THEVOCFB. I was looking for JB's social media. I found one. Go ahead and follow him on Instagram at JohnBaylor_Altman11. Make sure you tune in to us. We'll be posting videos throughout the week, doing recaps of this live show. We're going to give you more little videos from there. So if you want to be up to date on everything South Carolina football, hit the like and share. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Turn on the bell notification so that you are notified every time that a new video comes out. Like we mentioned already, guys, we got a lot planned out for you. We got a lot planned out for South Carolina Live. I'm excited for what we are building right now. It is going to be a blast. So, guys, thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of the day, and we will catch you all next week.